Today I want to talk about quilting. Quilting, putting your quilt top and your batting in between with your backing and stitching it all together. And the reason I put out my swirling star, because I know a lot of you have taken advantage of the free pattern. I will link to the video that has the free swirling stars pattern, so you could try it too. But when you're making your swirling star, whether it's tiny, meaning you shrink it down when you print it, or it's the size that is the actual size, when you're done putting your square together, make sure that your seam allowances are a scant 1/4 inch. And what I do is I just grab my scissors and take off my thimble, and I just trim like this. And the reason we're doing this is so that when you quilt these, when you put your sandwich together, you're not going through all those layers. I just quilt about 1/4 inch away from the edge here, the seams, and it makes your life a whole lot easier. So make sure you do that. And I do it as I'm sewing them, because if you sit there and have to, grab a big pile of these, it could be a little daunting. Here's a quilt that I made from Swirling Stars years and years ago. It's a wall hanging. And here is the quilting that you could see on the back. Now the goal is to get your stitches as small as you can. And the reason we do that is not just for the way that it looks, because it does look nice. And I've seen people back in the day, I'm 61 now, back when I was in my 20s, I used to get 21 stitches per inch. And I used to quilt all the time. I was always hand quilting. And what that does for your quilt is it creates a really strong, durable quilt. You're not going to have your batting shifting around in there with big loose stitches that could get caught on things, and it just makes for a true heirloom quilt. So however many you get, make them as small as you can, as tight as you can get them, and you will have yourself a really durable quilt. And the more you quilt, the better you're going to be at that. The last thing I want to tell you about is I've got a whole cloth quilt that I started years ago. I found it in a pile. I used to make baby quilts, and it's got these, I started appliquing apple cores down here, and I do remember that somehow I accidentally cut in or found a cut in this top fabric. So I started appliquing stuff, God forbid I just get rid of the quilt. When you're using cotton batting, I use Warm and Natural most of the time. And it is, I think it might have a scrim, I'm not sure. It's needle punched. It does not contain resins or glues. Anyway, I've got a massive roll of this, and that's what I use most of the time. But I did get, for my Swirling Star queen size, I did get this. And this is a wool batting, because I read how wonderfully warm, of course, this is, but also how easy it is to quilt through wool. With cotton, you get a little bit of resistance, and sometimes it can be frustrating. If it's really humid out, you might get that resistance even more. So wool is supposed to be fabulous. I did quilt with cotton batting years ago, and I don't remember how that was. It was definitely felt really good. All right, so what I use for quilting is my needle. All right, I mean my thimble. Let me get a little bit closer. So I use, let me get my light over here. a leather, I think it's called the Nimble thimble. And it's this little leather thimble that's got metal right there, like a little coin of metal. And I've used a leather thimble like this for years and years and years. I love them. I used to use a metal one that had like an opening like this, but this is definitely my favorite. For this demo, I'm using Gutermann quilting thread. It's a funny peach color. I don't know why I have this, but it's pretty, and it's pale. I used it actually for this quilt, and you can't even tell that it's this color. It reads as like an off-white. So it's got a glaze on it, and the glaze really helps. It keeps it from knotting most of the time, and it creates a really nice, strong quilting thread, and that's what you want. You can use regular, let me grab my regular quilting thread, and this also is Gutermann. It is unglazed, and you know what I'm going to tell you, you have to use beeswax on this. Get out your beeswax. I have a video of how to condition your thread with some beeswax. It will just make a more durable thread. It won't get as fatigued as quickly as unwaxed thread. Have your scissors ready, and then let's talk about needles. Now, the smaller or the higher the number, the smaller the needle. I use a number 12 quilting between, it's called. And again, let me get a little bit closer. So here they are, and these are by Tulip. This is the 12, and that is a 10. And you can see, let's see, you can see the difference in the length there. The 10 is definitely a longer, I think, thicker needle than the 12. So I would recommend, if you're just starting out, get yourself a 10, and quickly you're going to go to the 12. I can tell you that. It looks really tiny when you see it, but boy, when you start quilting with it, you're like, ah, look at that needle. Okay, so that's what I use. I have been really happy with the, this is what the package looks like. The Tulip quilting needles, the Hiroshima needle, they've been really nice needles, so give those a try. Now, I started already, but I'm gonna just take this out. This is just a sample. So, first thing you're gonna do, I wanna get my light here. One of my lights blew up. Is the quilter's knot. And you guys, I use this all the time, and you've seen me use it before. So you grab your needle, put the end of your thread between your index finger and your needle, go around once for the glazed cotton because it's thicker, it's got more body. And then you just pull the knot to the end. And you get a nice little knot. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bury that little knot. So, you know, I've got a wild field here of flowers, but I will show you the stitching. You want your cotton, you know, your sandwich, your quilt sandwich, to be taut. And I'm going to come out again so I could show you my hoop. I almost forgot about that. So I use a hoop. I have to use a hoop. And I found this one years ago. It's the outside hoop part of it is the bungee cord with this little wooden doohickey here. And the inside is a cherry wood hoop. And it's by Norwood. I bought this years ago at a show. Oh my God, I must have been in my early 30s. Norwood in Fremont, Michigan. But I love this hoop. It's fabulous. And I put it in, and then I could adjust it, tighten it, and make it as drum-like as I want, as taut as I want. All right, let me come back in real tight. And now we're going to do the burying of the knot, okay? So there I am. I'm finding myself on the camera. There's our little knot. You're going to go near, say you're going to start, I'll put a little dot. Say you're going to start right there. And this is just an air erasable pen. You want to kind of, I go about a ½ inch away, and I go into, with my needle, down into the top fabric, and I kind of go inside of the batting. I could feel I don't come out underneath at all. And then I come up where I want to start. Pull your thread through, and you could see the knot there is sitting on the top of the fabric, and all I do is give it a pull, and you hear that little pop, and then I don't pull it all the way out, but I give it a little tug, and it's buried inside of your quilt sandwich. And then we're going to start quilting. So I've got one hand, there's my hand, hey everybody, underneath, right? And I'm pressing up underneath so you can see where my hand is. And I work with, obviously, I'm a lefty on top. And I just put my needle in 90 degrees, right straight down. I can feel the point underneath with I use my middle finger. And then I'm going to rock my needle back with my thimble and push through. Right? And then your needle pops up. That's a little far for a stitch. It always happens with me on my first stitch. So I'm going to back it off a little bit. And then I just start rocking. And I could feel it underneath. And when you see your needle coming up, just the tip of it, that's when you know you're ready to go back down. And you can see why you need a good needle, because you put a lot of pressure, torque on this needle. I push through with my thimble and pull it through. And I've got my first, there it is, little group of stitches. And you just keep going. Don't make your length of thread too long from your, like, I don't know, your fingertips to your elbow. I think is as long as it should get. Again, I'm putting my needle in 90 degrees, rock it back, push, and then you just go back and forth. And let me tell you, this cotton batting does give you that little bit of resistance, which sometimes helps with these kinds of small stitches. And you get into a rhythm, and it goes quite quickly, obviously not as quickly as a machine, and you can see why there are quilting bees, right? Why women would get together in large groups. When you come through too quickly like this, or too far, I'm sorry, not quickly, just back off your needle a little bit. But they would have huge quilting bees. Women would sit around a quilt on a frame so they could get it done quickly. All right, and that's it. Come on, you. And then to end, right, I've got my length of stitching. To end, we're going to make another knot. So I'm going to hold my thread to the side, bring my needle through, right, and then I just put my finger down pull the thread, and you'll see I have a little knot right there. And then I just put my needle back down as though I'm making another stitch. Again, I'm not going through, just like the beginning, I'm not going through the backing, just inside of the batting. Come up, get stuck around that. Safety pin, and give it a pull. And you'll hear that little pop. And then we have a perfectly hidden knot right down in the batting. Give it a snip. Don't get too close or you could cut your fabric. So give it a snip. I have a little tail here, and I'm going to show you how to bury that. Take your needle. There's our little tail right there. Put it underneath, and I just catch the thread underneath and pull it down. And then we have a nice row, if you could see them there, of stitching. And it's here we go. I'll show you from the back. So there's the row of stitching that I did. And you don't see anything at the beginning or the ending, just the stitches. This is very, very satisfying. I really, let me pull back out. There we go. I highly, highly recommend learning to hand quilt. It's very meditative. And when you get done with a project, like I would start with something small. I wouldn't start with a queen size quilt, but something like a doll quilt like this, or a wall hanging, which actually might even be easier because you're not trying to get into all these little shapes. But it's something that when you see it done and it's all together, your bindings on, you're just going to be so happy that you made it completely by hand. And I have to tell you, I'm a machine piecer, a machine quilter. I love my machine. I actually have a couple that I use now. I use my featherweight, an old Singer featherweight, and I also have a Bernina. And I do that, but for my slow stitching, I always do hand quilting and hand piecing. So that's it, you guys. Any questions at all, please ask in the comments. I'll put what I've used. You don't need a lot. You need a needle, you need thread, you have to have a thimble or you're going to end up putting your needle right through your finger. And scissors, and a hoop. You do need a hoop. And I have to tell you, I love to go to Goodwill, and I often see hoops at Goodwill. It doesn't need to be a wooden hoop. You can use a plastic hoop, that's fine. For this one, because it was so small and I don't have a small hoop, I used an embroidery hoop and it worked fine. So again, any questions at all, please ask, and I will put a link to the video where you can get the free pattern for the swirling stars. All right, you guys, I'll see you next time.